Sphinx malware makes a comeback.
Hey, Bindu. Looks like Sphinx malware is back, and you have a pretty interesting article about that.
Yeah, George. So, what is old is new again, right? So, with reference to the Sphinx malware, what we are seeing is, I believe we covered it on ThreatTraq with John Huggaboom, probably late March. And we are seeing this malware continuously sort of being updated and given new forms, to be able to target specific verticals. In this case, it is targeted within the US, North America specifically, in terms of banking, as well as Canada and Australia. So what I found interesting is, we talk about cyber risk and financial fraud, given COVID-19. We've seen that crisis definitely fuels cybercrime, and we've seen a huge uptick in all of the, malspam activity that we're seeing. To consider a malware that's been out for years now, that is sort of getting a revival, and to think about the simplicity of how it's getting executed. The carrier in itself is a password protected malicious document. It's dubbed COVID-19 relief.doc. It's sent to users through a phishing attempt. It's claiming to gather information about relief payments that is being offered by the government. Once opened, it's enabling macros, it's targeting the computer of the end user, and it's really infecting them with the banking Trojan. The fact that today you have a malware that has been around, I believe in the underground world, it started off with a $500, bid for it, and it's constantly being tweaked to be used maliciously, targeted at financial fraud. It made me think about, we talk about malware, we talk about phishing attempts, we talk about this constant, increase in all of these attempts. We know that security awareness and training is important, especially in certain verticals such as financial services. But we also have to think about the cybercrime as a monetized industry is constantly going to make those updates, constantly going to reuse malware. So you not only need to have, technology controls, you also need to have the awareness as an end user today, where if you are accepting and opening such documents, and this malware is basically using injections into your web browser and taking you to sites where you are, sort of, it's opening up forms where you're putting in sensitive information, and it's sort of silently in the background, wanting to avoid all of the security tools by, really coming up with evolutionary processes associated with this malware. You start to think about, you know, as a security team, you have to constantly be on the watch and make sure, things like that don't get to your end user. So you need to have those technological controls to be able to avoid, this type of email getting to a user's inbox. But at the same time, you really have to think about how, the criminal industry is just tweaking things that have existed before and making the exploits available, so that more and more folks are using this to gain credentials and eventually gain money from individuals. So I thought,
It's
it's interesting that it's targeting banks. It's been around, but it's not going away. So
It's that is interesting. We often talk about APT as an advanced persistent threat, which is like considered nation states and things like that. But crimeware is just as much of a persistent threat as any of the other, of these nation state actors out there. These people, these adversaries, they never really give up. They keep modifying their scams to reflect like news. I mean, they might, today it might be Sphinx malware, tomorrow it might be, TrickBot or something else. They're always using that, but they're relentless in targeting individuals, and it's really on every company. It really has to think about that, how their employees get trained to recognize these things, and making sure they really have a good policy for doing defense in depth on the assets that they control. Yeah, really interesting. I'm continue to be, I guess amazed is the wrong word, but I guess amazed by the adversaries and their relentlessness. They're really, really good at keeping up to date with all the different news events out there and really targeting people based on the news stories out there.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the transport mechanism that's just thriving under all of this malware that's being delivered. And even on my story, I mean, it's amazing how much foothold they can grab with an email and an attachment. And there is tons of awareness out there. There are tons of examples. I mean, they are getting better and better at crafting these emails and crafting documents. But with all the awareness that we have out there, it's amazing how that mechanism just lives, thrives, keeps pushing through, and that there's so many people out there that even if like 1% of the emails they send get through, it's enough. I mean, it's enough for them. And like Stan said, these things will persist. If you don't have good endpoint protection and you don't clean the registry, they'll sit in the endpoint and worm out too if you're on a network, on an enterprise. So this is always what amazes me on this landscape is that the email and the attachments and links, just
Yeah, and the
incredible.
fact that this malware achieves that persistence, right, by adding that run key to the Windows registry, and it also, comes in two different formats. It's not only an executable file; it's also a DLL. So, it's not going to go away, right? And, so the fact that they are tweaking all these mechanisms and adding modifications, a new set of RC4 keys, a different command and control server, making the bot, injection happen, it really sort of begs the question that, if the malicious actors are constantly ramping up, security teams have to keep up, right? So which means that you have to have an adaptable, defense strategy if you are a security team within an organization to be able to keep up with this, threat landscape. And when you, read research data and you think about cybercrime going up, and you look at, these, phishing attempts rising, you start to think how easy it is for the malicious actor to change things, whereas it is really tough for a security team to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, and Stan said it, like you need defense in depth. And even with that, even with the proper email controls, the proper endpoint controls, they'll just flip it one day, change a key, change something in the code to kind of get past any signatures that you have. And if you're not looking for behavior, it's an easy win for them. So it's very interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Whack-a-mole, pretty much.